I feel like with the whiteboard, I'm kind of still giving your gay English teacher, like, yeah, you can come in and like eat lunch in my classroom, but you have to be quiet because it is also my break period too. I will give you book recommendations that will change your life. Hi, welcome back. Last Preptober video, we did a fun little like list of like 8 things that I wanted to play with for my novel that I will be writing in November as part of the November program. It's legally distinct. And one of the things I mentioned on that list was desolate and like isolated, but important. So to sort of get the vibes of why it's important, I'm gonna be drawing the broad strokes of like a regional map. Now, I'm not gonna go full hog into like fantasy world building. I'm not gonna make all of the seasons and like figure out every single trade route that exists. But I think a great way to make a place important is to make it some sort of doorway to another place. I think in this case, I'm gonna make it sort of like the gate and toll house to a very rich city. So the whole map isn't important for me making what I think is gonna be a locked house murder mystery, but I think it's important to find these little threads that you can pull as much as you need to while you're writing. Like, the world building for this might be kind of deep and seem intense that I'm doing it for just like a locked house murder mystery novel, but I think it's important to have at least like I know the depth that's there so that I can allude to the reader what kind of depth is there. I'm gonna make a whole region map. I don't even know if I'm gonna give names to all of these places. I'm just gonna kind of give them descriptors and then we'll sort of work out from there. So, can you see my whiteboard? Is this in frame? I'm gonna open up my document. I'm not afraid to admit I did a little bit of prep. By that, I mean I opened up Scrivener. And that was the extent of the preparation I did. When I was thinking about how I wanted this place to be important, I wanted it to be like number one, I wanted it to be near water, because I had that other thing on my list where I wanted fish. Or just like to fuck around with fish. I just think they're fun. I think it's very easy to get very superstitious about fish because fish, I feel like, are superstitious about being alive. I'm not gonna explain that statement, but it is true and you know it. So when I was thinking about this, I wanted it to be like they're the opening to like a very large bay or like an inland sea. I kind of got the idea actually from the Great Lakes in the US. If you've ever looked at a map of the Great Lakes, there's a lot of places where like there's like inlets, like 5 of them meet. So the thing is that there's that little space between Lake Michigan and Lake Huron that like they meet almost, or they do technically meet. I can't remember the exact specifics of it. I'm not gonna pull up a whole ass map of the Great Lakes right now, but there's that little spot where they meet. And my brain went, hey now, that could be an easily defensible location that a civilization would set up. Right? Because you have access to both of these great bodies of water, and you have the point where they meet. So I drew this up last night, and we're gonna see how much I can recreate it from memory, because I'm using my phone to record right now, and I took a picture of it, and I didn't think about that, because I didn't prep that much. This is like Preptober for losers, so here's what we're doing, all right? Alright, so I'm thinking this is gonna be a bay of some sort. I want like a large body of water that goes pretty far inland. I'm not gonna give you a scale for this. I just think the inside of here, probably, just because this is around where I grew up, I think this is like a Lake Michigan. Alright, so like this is a very large inland sea. Or it would be considered an inland sea if it didn't connect to the actual sea. So this is a very large strait? Lake? Bay? Bay is the word I was looking for, actually. So this is a very large, very important bay for trading. So I think the family who has the murder happen to them, I think they're the ones who live like right here. And I think they're the keepers of a very large bridge or gate, which is right here. Can you see that? Okay. So I think this is Number one, I think it's both. I think it can be used as a bridge when the gate is up or down. I think it can be used as a bridge. But I think this is also a gate that protects all of the communities that are in here from sea-based threats. So I think this is a very large gate that controls access to this whole inland empire. All right? And I think that's important because anywhere you control access, you know what else you control? Trade, baby. I think these guys got really rich off of the tariffs of everything coming into the country. I think they are not the capital of this sort of like empire country area, but I think they are like the financial center for trade. So I think there is, I'm gonna do purple now. I'm sorry if you can't see the difference in all these colors. That's my bad. They're not very vibrant colors. So I think their house is like right here at the very tip. I think there's like a large like gatehouse for like all of this, and I think there's like a small contingent of like the equivalent of the Army Corps of Engineers, right? Who live and work and maintain on the gate. But I think there's also just like this house that is the local baron, trade, magistrate, the like guy who collects the taxes for things coming in here. It's a very wealthy area, and I think a lot of like the trade companies probably have like offices in this like small city. But I think the house itself for like the noble family is like set up and isolated. I think these sort of like the teeth almost that like come together, like claw. I think the two parts of like this claw that come together are very mountainous. So I think the house and gate are like set up away from like the city proper. So I think maybe the city proper is like right there-ish. It's like a little bit away from this main gate because this part is like just very mountainous and like sticks up out of the water. Okay, so why does anybody want to come inland to here? I'm just gonna say there's probably a big ass city. I'll be honest, I think it's just a big rich city that's in here. In The Tainted Cup, Robert Jackson Bennett describes this series of like large, of just like massive walls that protect the empire at the center from like threats from the sea. Like they have like leviathans that come up out of the sea, right? And I like that like walls as protection, but also like if you live outside the walls, you're fucked. That's a very common fantasy thing. People love to make a wall. Just all of human history, people have loved to make a big wall. So I think there's probably some big inland empire that like operates from like back here. I think it's a very big, prosperous empire, and I think they just have a city that's like right here that exerts control over this little like region. I think this region is pretty sparsely populated otherwise. I think like, I don't know as though they have great farmland per se. I think maybe this region, this like city and this like kingdom empire, I keep changing my language. I haven't decided what I want to use for them yet, but I think this empire probably has all of the farmland within these walls. So I think all of the good farmland is here, which is why they're willing to work and collect tariffs and like run trade for these people because they have all of the food. They have all of the access to the outside world. I think that's a fun dichotomy. I think obviously like in a real world situation, historically this has led to more conquering, but I wonder if like anybody from outside the walls is like, maybe they're really skilled sailors because they've been on the water their entire lives. And I think they managed to just like really fuck up this port city. And everybody's like, all right, chill. We'll let you, you can keep doing your free people thing. But like, this gate has to stay open so we can collect taxes. So we're gonna install like a family or like a regiment of soldiers who will always man this gate. I think I want there to be like this like culture, not culture match, but like certainly I want there to be some group here who we can reasonably suspect as trying to murder the trade baroness. I think that's what I want. I think I want there to be some sort of other group that's like very easily othered and therefore can play almost as like a red herring, kind of. I think that's what I want to do. I think I want them to be my red herrings. So what about the rest of this land? Well, when I was thinking about this land, I was thinking specifically about like ocean currents. Sorry that this has turned into like, hey, have you ever thought about geography before? That's crazy. Anyway, I think the flow of the ocean, I think these guys are pretty, compared to their world, I think they are pretty far south, but I think that means they get Arctic currents of water. So I think this water is very cold and unforgiving. So I want to say they get like, the current, I think probably goes like up here-ish. And I think that's part of why this land is maybe not great for farming, because I think they have a rainy season, and I think this area gets like flooded very easily. Now, that is actually good for some types of farming. So I feel like there's enough crops here for like a small civilization, but nothing the scale of like our big boys here. So I'm gonna just like plop some more little like settlements here. I'm just gonna plop a few little settlements down and we'll sort of see if we like the placement, and if not, we'll move. I sort of, instead of doing one city, like a dot for a city like I did up here, I kind of prefer, you can't even really see that, I kind of prefer doing just like a, sort of like a little scribble of color to represent more of like a population area. I don't know if the people out here really tend to gather in cities beyond their like one bigger city or within the walls here. So, oh, I broke the cap of this marker. Guys, why am I so destructive? I think that's going to be like a lower, these are going to be, I think, lower population centers here. And I think maybe we'll do another one sort of like on the coast. Probably another one like up here-ish. For like another access to the water. So I think one thing that's really important when you're building out any sort of region is like the flow of commerce and people. Historically, the flow of people has always followed the flow of commerce, but there's sort of like a yin and a yang. You can't really have one without the other. So I think the reason why like this city in this area, this gate is so important is because it's a much quicker way to get to the city, the big city. I think that's why little ones like this, while there might be populations on the coast up here, it's much slower to bring things overland than it is over sea. Like this is like, even sailing across Lake Michigan is like 6 to 8 hours, if even that, depending on how fast you go, right? That's much quicker than having to unload all your stuff, reload it onto a caravan, and then walk the length of Lake Michigan, right? So I think this port just became so important just like for like speed, for like access to commerce and people and things. What else do we want to do here? We do need to give it some names, of course. I think I want this one to be like, I want these names to, the names for these places, these also might just be like placeholders, right? But I think I want them to have sort of like an English flair, maybe like a Scandinavian. I kind of like an English flair though, just because this feels like such a fucking English-ass thing to do. Sorry to the British. I'm not. But like, sorry to the British or whatever. I wanted to have an English flair to the names, because that is number one, just easier for me to figure out, and then if I want to give it some sort of other flair later, then I can just replace it and play around with it. So I think this will just be for ease of use. I'm thinking I want this to do, this does kind of look like a claw. Like a crab's claw. So I want to do maybe like a black claw bay or something like that. Something representing the fact that you are in claws or jaws or something of that nature. You know what I mean? I'm really feeling like a black claw bay or a black, yeah, I like black claw. I think it's fun. I think it also maybe represents the fact that this is like a stormy with the Arctic currents coming up. I think maybe like if you go into the water for too long, obviously your skin turns black because you have hypothermia. Sorry, you're gonna die. So I like that. If this gets washed out every year, can I do like a drowned coast kind of thing? That feels almost similar to something else. Is there a drowned coast in a video game? I think it would be fun if there was a very distinct difference in naming conventions between things that like this city, the walled city, named, like if they named the bay something else, and there's a distinct difference in naming conventions on the people who live outside the walls. I'm gonna have to ruminate on that a little bit more, mostly because I want to pick a theme for outside the walls and like stick to it, but I think that's what I want. I was also gonna mark another little population center. Obviously, if you have walls, you're always gonna have business that operates right outside of it. Sorry, the light is up there. You're not gonna be able to see it, but I've added some population density. I'll make a better version of this map soon, probably. I'll make a better version of this map and then bring that on at the end of the video. But I want there to be just like something, I want the walled city to have a distinct influence on this region, but I don't want these people who like have always lived on this coast and in this region to have just like completely lost their identity in the sauce of an empire. To think about. All questions that like are super good, big world building questions that like eventually you do need to answer. None of which I'm going to answer in this YouTube video today because it's something that like that's a month-long project. And also it's stuff like I'm doing this as like a general so that I know the forces that are like pushing at play here when this woman, the trade baroness, gets murdered. I want there to be like stakes. You know, I want it to be important that this woman got murdered. So I have the characters I have so far, obviously. I have my detective or my necromancer who might not be a very good necromancer. I think maybe he's my necromancer who's not very good at things. And then obviously we have the daughter of the woman who got murdered, and then the husband of the woman who got murdered. So we have that camp, right? They call in our necromancer, our not very good necromancer, to investigate that murder, right? I want there to be some sort of outside force, whether it be from like an independent trading company that has a lot of ships that are being held up because of this. I want there to be an official investigator from the walled city that is on to the con that our necromancer is playing. I want there to be like multiple people with different interests. Maybe this murder doesn't get solved, maybe it does. What matters most is that these people, whoever they work for, come out of this ahead. There's this really great quote from Leverage. I'm gonna try and find the exact quote and put it up here, but basically it's like justice or order, one day you're gonna have to choose one. And number one, that like struck me so deeply in a funny heist show, but also Leverage is a fucking masterpiece of television, so of course it struck me deeply. But also, I want that to be like an underlying current here. So that's just like some musings on world building here. Again, the reason I'm doing this map is not because any of it really matters specifically in the text. And if it does come up in the text, then I'm probably gonna delete a lot of it in revisions. But I want there to be some sort of like context for why this house is on this bridge. I want there to be a reason this woman's life matters outside of the fact that she is a person, so intrinsically her life matters. Do you know what I mean? Am I making any fucking sense in this video? I genuinely don't know. I think this is a fun little map that I've made. Sorry, I'm just sort of like taking it all in now that I've sort of gotten my insane unhinged musings out. I like it. I like it a lot. I also like it then because if you have sort of like a quote unquote civilized allegory for the British Empire here, and if you have this really big marvel of engineering here, like you have to have people to maintain it. So like there's gotta be like in this city, there's gotta be like a trade school for engineers. Like I think it's fun to like be able to use the environment to kind of inform the makeup of the dinner party. Maybe this is something that the Baron throws every year as sort of like a welcome to the school year batch. So there's a lot of young men, a lot of young engineers, very smart guys running around their house. Maybe my neighbor's dog could stop barking. Maybe there's, oh, that could be fun. I already said the Baron has a daughter. If he's throwing sort of like a welcome to trade school, welcome to like your grad school for the guys who are working on the bridge, it could be fun if there was a love thing. Or like if her mother is the one stopping all of the like any sort of suitors, and therefore somebody thinks that maybe the reason they don't have a chance with this girl is because of her mother. When really, I think the girl's probably a lesbian. You see what I mean? When like, even just like the vague outlines of a world map give you a lot of stuff to chew on. Because when you're building a world, right, the important thing is that you, at least in your brain, in your notes, you take it to the logical conclusion. There's a big ass bridge gate here. Logically, there's a lot of engineers and like mechanical support that needs to be there. So logically, they probably have a school or lodgings or army barracks that are here to service the bridge. Logic. Just take it to the next step. I can't wait to actually get started writing. Holy shit, I'm actually very excited for this. I want to set up and I want to write this novel in November. This is my first time actually trying to sit down and just like write a novel during the whole month. The last few years that I've done some sort of November program, legally distinct, I've always done like short stories or like written like fanfic and stuff. So I've always done like a lot of little things in November. I'm excited to take one beefy boy and just sort of like do that. Let me know in the comments down below, number one, let me know what you guys use for making your maps, or if you do make a map, or if you just kind of like draw it, or if you have a program, let me know. Also, what should I prep next? I'm excited to start sort of digging into, I think I'm gonna dig into characters, and then we'll do maybe murder method last. So if I have the characters, then I can do sort of like figure out who my murderer is, but also like figure out the most likely murder method for them later. So I'm thinking maybe next week we do characters. What do you think about that? What do you feel? How are you feeling about that? It's the end of the video. I'm here to tell you that you should probably go write. I'm sorry I have to be this one. I'm sorry I have to be that guy. You do need to go write.